In this video, I'd like to discuss about how public key is used for encryption and authentication while sending a message. Now, let's say Alice wants to send a message to Bob. The message should be encrypted, and Alice also need to confirm authentication that she is Alice, not someone else. In that case, both of the things that should be in one way message, like someone is sending an email. How can we do that, and how can we confirm the authentication and encryption in one message? Now let's see, as the mentioned question mentioned, that Alice is sender and Bob is receiver. In this case, if an email or secure message is sent it from Alice to Bob, the process will be done by hybrid encryption. So the first step is key exchange by the public key method. We know that the public key encryption method is done by the encrypting of public key to the message receiver. Receiver is public key. So if the sender Alice wants to send an encrypted message to Bob, he will encrypt the Bob's public key, and then the ciphertext he will send. When the Bob will receive the message, he will decrypt the message by his own private key, and then he will get the key. So if Alice wants to send an encrypted email to Bob, then allies need the public key method for key exchange, and by this public key encryption is ensuring the confidentiality, integrity, and also encryption for key exchange. Now, in the second question, how you will get the public key? Answer is by the certificate or digital signature. You can authenticate that this is Alice. Now, Allah is authenticated by a digital certificate where a certificate authority was encrypting the certificate request of allies by the certificate authority's private key, and he was encrypted a hash function of the plain text. The plain text was the information about allies company and so on. So this hash plain text is encrypted with the CS private key. So if anyone like Bob wants to authenticate the certificate, then he has to go to up level and he has to check the public key of the certificate authorities public key in the upper level, and then that public key Bob will use to decrypt the message of um, H dot. So once the plain text will be um, calculated by his own plain own cryptographic hash value, and encrypted decrypted hash value will be compared to the same, that then that is the authentication point of allies, that he is the original allies. For the detail of certificate, we will discuss in next video. But in this case, we can simply say that digital signature was used for the authentication of digital certificate was used for the authentication of allies, and here the digital signature is the process where the digital signature is the inverse process of public key encryption. This confirms the authentication but not the confidentiality. If Bob has the certificate of allies that is digitally signed by the CA, then Bob can trust on allies and Bob will receive the message from allies. Question is how the authentication done of allies. I already mentioned, but again I am repeating it. The answer is if allies wants to send a digital certificate or want to send a message that is digitally signed, allies has the encrypted hash value by the private key or the signature of the certificate authority. CA has the certificate of allies. CA has signed the certificate of allies. So basically, what it means that allies has its own certificate, which is signed by the certificate authority, digitally signed. Once Bob will receive that certificate, he can verify the certificate by decrypting in the public key of the certificate authority, and then he will be confirmed that it is allies. Now, the question is how the message should be encrypted. Bob now generate a session key, that is, now already the keys are exchanged. The question is how the message will be encrypted. They will use the hybrid encryption. I already told how the keys are exchanged by the public key method. In this case, Bob generate a session key and encrypt the public key and send it to allies. Allies decrypt the message with allies private key. Now Bob and allies has the session key for the symmetric encryption, and symmetric encryption. Now this session key is used for further data encryption. So we can say the how can we do this in one shot. First, we have the certificate authority with the public key. Or first we have the certificate that is signed with the that contains the public key and the signature of the certificate authority by digital certificate. And the second step is hybrid encryption, where we exchange the key by public key encryption, and session key is generated by Bob and encrypted with the message. So in this case, the total process, you can say, okay, assume allies has the certificate, allies is authenticated by the certificate. Bob generates a session key for symmetric encryption. Bob encrypt the session key with the public key of the certificate of allies and send it to allies. And then allies can decrypt the message with his private key. Now both party has the session key. Allies use this session key and encrypt the message with the session key and send it to Bob. So it is just one way communication.